I can tell you that in all my time here, these cases, this case is one of the most difficult to decide as to what happens. I can tell you that whenever they are just for procedure-wise, so that the families and people here understand, whenever there is a plea of guilty or a finding of guilt, what happens is we send probation over to do an investigation. And they investigate everything because they're unbiased. They don't have a stake in this on either side. And I can tell you that investigations, they don't show the whole picture, but they show quite a bit. I've heard quite a few times, and I've read several letters talking about lack of remorse, lack of sorrow, and maybe that has been brought forth because then it becomes easier to not forgive, easier to maintain hate, disdain, and to blame for one's loss. But I can tell you, even in looking at the initial time of the accident, the officer on duty who talked to the defendant continued to say, "I effed up. I effed up." The report goes on to say the defendant was extremely distraught and worried about the driver of the Ford Focus. He was very remorseful and stated that the accident was his own fault for driving too fast. And he consented to a blood test and was cooperative. Later on, when the defendant was interviewed by probation, it echoed exactly what the officer said that evening, that the defendant was extremely remorseful. It further went on to state some other things. It shows us the defendant's record, which, you know, it's been talked about by the victims here, but it shows a misdemeanor record. It shows no previous DUIs, all of these things which are to be considered at the time of sentencing. It also goes through and it talks about risk, the recidivism factors, would it occur again? And as part of my sentencing, I have to go by what the law says. And there are, and I do understand that there's also some disdain for the judicial system, but I can tell you when I started practicing, the offenses that were committed here weren't even felonies. So for the victims of the family, I would hope that you would think that the judicial system is moving in the correct direction.